The morning sun cast long shadows across the shooting range as Elena Martinez carefully placed her rifle on the bench. At 23, she had already earned a reputation as one of the most promising markswomen in competitive shooting. Her calloused hands moved with practiced precision, checking each component of her custom-built rifle with the same attention her grandmother once gave to her embroidery. Elena's journey to this moment had been anything but ordinary. Growing up in a small farming community in rural Texas, she learned to shoot not for sport but out of necessity. Wild boars threatened their crops, and her father's failing eyesight meant the responsibility fell to her young shoulders. What started as a chore gradually transformed into passion when she discovered her natural ability to hit targets that seemed impossible to others. The local gun shop owner, Miguel Santos, had been the first to notice her exceptional talent. He watched in amazement as this teenage girl consistently hit targets at distances that challenged experienced hunters. Miguel became her unofficial mentor, teaching her about different types of ammunition, wind patterns, and the subtle art of breathing control that separated good shooters from great ones. Today was different from her usual practice sessions. Elena was preparing for the state championship, but more importantly, she was testing a new scope that Miguel had specially ordered for her. The scope represented months of saved earnings from her part-time job at the local diner, where she served coffee and pie to ranchers and truck drivers who had no idea about her extraordinary skill with a rifle. As she adjusted the scope's settings, Elena reflected on the skepticism she had faced. Many people in her conservative community questioned why a young woman would pursue such a traditionally male-dominated activity. Her own mother had initially worried that shooting would make Elena appear unfeminine, but those concerns faded when Elena's tournament winnings helped pay for her younger brother's medical treatments. The rifle felt like an extension of her body as she settled into position. Elena had learned to block out distractions, focusing only on her breathing, the target, and the delicate relationship between her heartbeat and the perfect moment to pull the trigger. She had developed an almost meditative approach to shooting, finding peace in the absolute concentration required for precision marksmanship. Her coach, retired military sniper James Patterson, had been impressed by Elena's natural instincts but insisted she learn proper technique. Under his guidance, she studied ballistics, learned to read environmental conditions, and developed the mental discipline that would serve her well beyond the shooting range. James often said that Elena possessed something that couldn't be taught, an intuitive understanding of how bullets traveled through space. The new scope represented more than just equipment to Elena. It symbolized her commitment to excellence and her determination to prove that dedication and practice could overcome any obstacle. She had spent countless hours researching specifications, reading reviews, and saving money to afford this particular model. The scope promised enhanced accuracy at longer distances, potentially opening doors to national competitions. As Elena made final adjustments to the scope, she thought about her goals beyond competitive shooting. She dreamed of earning a college scholarship, studying engineering, and perhaps one day designing better equipment for other shooters. Her high school guidance counselor had encouraged these academic aspirations, recognizing that Elena's analytical mind and attention to detail would serve her well in technical fields. The shooting range was unusually quiet that morning. Most serious shooters preferred early hours when wind conditions were most predictable, but Elena had arrived even earlier than usual. She wanted uninterrupted time to familiarize herself with the new scope's characteristics. Each piece of equipment had its own personality, and Elena believed in developing a personal relationship with her tools. Her preparation ritual included checking weather conditions, calculating potential wind drift, and mentally rehearsing each shot. Elena had learned that successful shooting was 90% mental preparation and 10% physical execution. She approached each session with the same methodical preparation that had made her increasingly successful in regional competitions. The target stood 300 yards away, a challenging distance that would truly test the new scope's capabilities. Elena had shot at this distance countless times with her old equipment, but the new scope promised greater precision and clarity. She was particularly interested in testing its performance in the changing light conditions that often challenged shooters during competitions. As she settled into her shooting position, Elena felt the familiar calm that preceded her best performances. Her breathing slowed, her heartbeat steadied, and the world around her seemed to narrow to just herself, the rifle, and the distant target. This moment of perfect focus was what she lived for. The reason she had fallen in love with precision shooting despite all the challenges and skepticism she had faced. Elena squeezed the trigger with practiced smoothness, feeling the rifle's familiar recoil against her shoulder. Through the new scope, she watched the bullet's impact with satisfaction, a perfect center hit that confirmed her equipment was properly zeroed. What she didn't notice was the small group of people who had quietly gathered near the range's observation area. Among the observers was Marcus Webb, a talent scout for the United States Olympic Development Program. Marcus had been visiting shooting ranges across the Southwest, searching for promising young athletes who might represent America in international competitions. He had heard rumors about a young woman from this small Texas town who possessed extraordinary shooting abilities, but he remained skeptical until he witnessed Elena's performance firsthand. Marcus watched in amazement as Elena fired shot after shot with mechanical precision. Her form was textbook perfect, but more importantly, her results were consistently exceptional. Each bullet found its mark with an accuracy that suggested natural talent combined with serious dedication. Marcus had seen many gifted shooters during his career, but Elena's combination of technical skill and mental composure was truly rare. Standing beside Marcus was Dr. Sarah Chen, a sports psychologist who specialized in working with elite marksmen. Sarah observed Elena's pre-shot routine with professional interest, noting the young woman's ability to achieve deep concentration despite being unaware of her audience. The psychological aspects of competitive shooting often determined success at the highest levels, and Elena displayed the mental characteristics that separated champions from merely skilled competitors. Elena's shooting session continued for another hour, during which she tested various distances and environmental conditions. She methodically recorded each shot's performance in a weathered notebook, analyzing patterns and making small adjustments to her technique. This scientific approach to improvement impressed the observers, who recognized that Elena possessed not just talent, but the analytical mindset necessary for continued development. When Elena finally packed up her equipment, Marcus approached with careful diplomacy. He introduced himself and explained his role with the Olympic program, watching Elena's reaction carefully. Many young athletes became overwhelmed when confronted with the possibility of competing at national and international levels, but Elena listened with composed attention. Marcus explained that the United States was actively seeking new talent for its shooting team. Recent changes in Olympic shooting sports had created opportunities for young athletes who possessed both technical skills and the mental toughness required for international competition. Elena's performance that morning had demonstrated both qualities in abundance. The conversation that followed would change Elena's life trajectory in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Marcus described the rigorous training programs available to promising athletes, including access to world-class coaches, state-of-the-art facilities, and international competition opportunities. For a young woman from rural Texas, these possibilities seemed almost too extraordinary to believe. Dr. Chen joined the conversation, explaining how mental training could enhance Elena's already impressive natural abilities. She described techniques used by Olympic champions to maintain focus under pressure, manage competition anxiety, and perform consistently at the highest levels. Elena found herself fascinated by the scientific approach to mental performance, recognizing similarities to her own intuitive methods. The discussion revealed Elena's remarkable dedication to self-improvement. Despite limited resources and minimal, formal coaching, she had developed training routines that impressed these experienced professionals. Her homemade ballistics charts, detailed weather logs, and systematic approach to equipment testing demonstrated a level of commitment that often took years to develop. Marcus extended an invitation for Elena to attend a regional training camp, where promising young shooters received intensive coaching and evaluation. The camp would provide Elena with her first exposure to truly elite-level competition and coaching. More importantly, it would allow program officials to assess her potential for international competition. Elena's initial reaction was excitement mixed with practical concerns. The training camp would require time away from her job at the diner, and her family depended on her income. Additionally, she had never traveled far from home or competed against shooters with extensive formal training and expensive equipment. The prospect was both thrilling and intimidating. Dr. Chen addressed Elena's concerns with understanding and encouragement. She explained that many successful Olympic athletes had overcome similar challenges, emphasizing that natural talent and determination often mattered more than early advantages. The Olympic program provided scholarships and support systems specifically designed to help promising athletes from modest backgrounds. As the conversation concluded, Marcus provided Elena with detailed information about the training camp and application procedures. He emphasized that her performance that morning had earned her a guaranteed spot if she chose to participate. The decision would ultimately be Elena's, but the opportunity represented a potential pathway to achievements beyond her current dreams. Walking back to her truck with the Scouts' business cards in her pocket, Elena felt her world expanding in unexpected directions. The new scope she had been so excited to test suddenly seemed less significant compared to the possibilities that had just been presented. Her morning practice session, intended simply to fine-tune equipment, had unexpectedly opened doors to a future she had never dared to imagine. That evening, Elena would need to make one of the most important decisions of her young life. The safe, familiar world of local competitions and part-time work would always be there, but opportunities to compete at elite levels rarely presented themselves twice. The training camp in Colorado Springs was unlike anything Elena had ever experienced. The Olympic Training Center sprawled across acres of pristine facilities, where America's finest athletes prepared for international competition. Elena's small duffel bag and modest equipment seemed inadequate compared to the sophisticated gear carried by other participants. But her nervousness gradually gave way to determination. Her roommate was Jennifer Park, a 19-year-old from California, whose parents had invested thousands of dollars in her shooting career since childhood. Jennifer's equipment case contained rifles worth more than Elena's family earned in several months. Yet she welcomed Elena with genuine warmth and curiosity about her unconventional background. The first day of training revealed the enormous gap between Elena's self-taught techniques and formal Olympic-style coaching. Head coach Vladimir Petrov, a former Soviet Olympic champion, observed each shooter with intense scrutiny. When he reached Elena's station, his expression revealed both surprise and interest. Her fundamentals were solid, but her style was entirely unique. Vladimir had coached dozens of promising young shooters, but Elena's approach challenged many conventional assumptions about proper technique. She had developed methods that worked perfectly for her but violated traditional coaching principles. Rather than immediately correcting these differences, Vladimir decided to study Elena's natural style before making any modifications. The daily routine was grueling and comprehensive. Shooters began each morning with physical conditioning, designed specifically for their sport. Elena discovered muscles she didn't know existed as she performed exercises intended to improve stability, breathing control, and endurance. The physical demands of elite-level shooting were far greater than she had realized. Technical training sessions focused on minute details that Elena had never considered. Coaches analyzed every aspect of her technique using video equipment and computer software that could detect problems invisible to the naked eye. Elena learned about equipment modifications, ammunition selection, and environmental factors that could influence performance by fractions of points. The mental training with Dr. Chen proved equally challenging and enlightening. Elena participated in visualization exercises, stress management techniques, and concentration drills that pushed her psychological limits. She discovered that her natural ability to achieve deep focus was actually a sophisticated mental skill that could be further developed and refined. Competition against other camp participants provided Elena's first taste of truly elite-level shooting. These young athletes had been competing nationally for years and possessed technical knowledge that Elena was just beginning to acquire. However, when the pressure mounted during simulated competition scenarios, Elena's natural composure often prevailed over more experienced but nervous competitors. Vladimir began to see Elena's potential more clearly as the camp progressed. Her unconventional background had actually provided certain advantages, particularly in mental toughness and adaptability. While other shooters sometimes struggled with pressure because they had been taught to fear mistakes, Elena approached each shot with quiet confidence born from years of hunting and practical shooting experience. The camp's most challenging aspect was the constant evaluation and comparison with other participants. Elena's scores gradually improved as she absorbed new techniques and refined her equipment setup, but she remained aware that several other shooters possessed years of additional training and experience. The competition for limited spots on developmental teams was intense and sometimes overwhelming. Elena's breakthrough came during the camp's final competition, a simulated international match that would determine team selections. The pressure was enormous, with coaches, scouts, and officials watching every shot. Many participants, despite their extensive experience, struggled under the intense scrutiny and high stakes. As Elena settled into her shooting position for the final series, she drew upon lessons learned from years of hunting in challenging conditions. The pressure of competition suddenly seemed less significant than the responsibilities she had felt when her family's crops depended on her accuracy. This perspective shift allowed her to shoot with the same calm precision that had first caught Marcus Webb's attention. Her final score was not the highest of the competition, but her consistent performance under pressure impressed the coaching staff. Elena had demonstrated the mental toughness and adaptability that often determined success at international levels. More importantly, her rapid improvement during the camp suggested enormous potential for continued development. Vladimir approached Elena after the competition with news that would change her trajectory forever. Despite her relatively late start and unconventional background, the coaching staff had decided to offer her a position in the developmental program. The decision was based not just on her current abilities, but on their assessment of her potential for future excellence. The offer included access to world-class coaching, state-of-the-art equipment, and competition opportunities that would have been unimaginable just weeks earlier. Elena would need to relocate to the training center and commit to a rigorous schedule that would transform shooting from a passion into a profession. Standing in the Colorado mountain air that evening, Elena reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that morning, when she had simply been adjusting a new scope. The practical farm girl from Texas was being invited to pursue Olympic dreams, but accepting would mean leaving behind everything familiar and comfortable. The decision would require sacrifices from her entire family and carry no guarantee of success. Elite athletic careers were notoriously uncertain, and Elena was acutely aware that she was competing against athletes who had been preparing for this opportunity their entire lives. However, the chance to represent her country and test her abilities against the world's best shooters was impossible to ignore. 2 years of intensive training had transformed Elena from a talented amateur into a legitimate contender for the United States Olympic team. Her scores consistently ranked among the top 3 American women in her event, and her mental toughness had become legendary among coaches and competitors. The upcoming World Championships in Munich would serve as the final selection event for the Olympic team. The pressure surrounding the World Championships was unlike anything Elena had previously experienced. Media attention focused on established stars and rising contenders, with Elena receiving modest coverage as an interesting story about the farm girl who had emerged from nowhere to challenge shooting's elite. The attention was flattering but also distracting, requiring mental adjustments to her usual preparation routine. Elena's equipment had evolved significantly since her early training camp days. She now possessed rifles and accessories that rivaled those of any competitor in the world, but she remained superstitious about the scope that had started her journey. Although newer technology offered theoretical advantages, Elena continued using her original scope for important competitions, believing it brought her luck and maintained her connection to her roots. The American team arrived in Munich 10 days before competition began, allowing time for adjustment to local conditions and final preparation. Elena shared accommodation with 2 veteran Olympic team members who had initially been skeptical of her rapid rise, but now respected her abilities and work ethic. The team dynamic was supportive but intensely competitive, as only 3 spots were available for the upcoming Olympics. Munich's shooting venue was intimidating in its sophistication and history. The facility had hosted numerous world championships and Olympic events, and its walls were lined with photographs of legendary champions. Elena studied these images, drawing inspiration from shooters who had overcome similar challenges to achieve greatness. Training sessions in Munich revealed subtle differences in local conditions that could influence competition results. The altitude, humidity, and even acoustic properties of the venue required small adjustments to technique and equipment. Elena worked closely with team coaches to fine-tune these details. Knowing that victories at this level often came down to tiny margins, the mental preparation was equally crucial. Dr. Chen, now Elena's regular sports psychologist, helped her develop specific strategies for managing the enormous pressure of world championship competition. Elena practiced visualization techniques that allowed her to mentally rehearse every aspect of her performance, from equipment setup to the final shot sequence. Elena's family made the journey to Germany to support her, their first trip outside the United States. Her parents' pride was evident but tinged with amazement at the sophisticated world their daughter now inhabited. The contrast between Elena's humble origins and the international glamour of elite competition was stark, but her family's presence provided emotional grounding. The preliminary rounds began with Elena performing solidly, but not spectacularly. Her scores were competitive with the world's best, but several other shooters were performing at exceptional levels. Elena recognized that qualifying for the final would require perfect execution under maximum pressure, something she had trained for but never experienced at this magnitude. As the competition progressed, Elena found herself in contention for both individual medals and Olympic team selection. The dual pressure created psychological challenges that tested every mental technique she had learned. Veterans who had seemed unbeatable in training were struggling under the intense scrutiny, while some younger competitors were rising to unexpected levels. Elena's coach reminded her that she had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Her rapid ascent meant that strong performance would be celebrated while any struggles could be attributed to inexperience. This perspective helped Elena approach each shot with the same calm determination that had characterized her hunting days, when consequences were practical rather than aspirational. The qualifying rounds concluded with Elena earning a spot in the 8-person final, the first American woman to reach this level in several years. Her position was precarious. She had qualified in 7th place and would need exceptional shooting to medal. However, her inclusion in the final guaranteed her selection for the Olympic team, fulfilling a dream that had seemed impossible just 3 years earlier. The night before the final, Elena spent hours studying video footage of her competitors and analyzing the technical details that separated good shots from perfect ones. She also spoke with her grandmother by phone, listening to familiar stories about their family's history and drawing strength from her roots. The conversation reminded Elena that regardless of competition results, she had already exceeded everyone's expectations. Vladimir provided final technical advice but emphasized that Elena's success had always come from trusting her instincts rather than overthinking technique. Her natural shooting ability, combined with years of disciplined training, had prepared her for this moment. The challenge would be maintaining her natural rhythm while managing the intense pressure of competing for world championship medals. Elena's equipment preparation was meticulous, with every component checked and rechecked. She had learned that equipment failures at crucial moments could destroy years of preparation, so nothing was left to chance. Her original scope received special attention, as it would carry not just her hopes but also the dreams of coaches, family members, and supporters who had believed in her journey. Standing at the threshold of the World Championship final, Elena reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this point. From adjusting a new scope on a quiet Texas morning to competing against the world's best in Germany's most prestigious shooting venue, her path had been filled with unexpected turns and remarkable opportunities. The Munich shooting venue buzzed with anticipation as the World Championship final began. 8 women from 6 countries prepared to compete for medals that would define careers and determine Olympic favorites. Elena's lane assignment placed her between Germany's defending world champion and China's rising star, both shooters with extensive international experience and flawless technique. Elena's pre-competition routine remained unchanged from her training camp days. She methodically checked her equipment, reviewed her shooting diary's notes about venue conditions, and performed the breathing exercises that Dr. Chen had taught her. The familiar rituals provided comfort amid the unprecedented pressure and media attention surrounding the final. The first elimination series would reduce the field from 8 to 6 competitors. Elena's opening shots were solid but not spectacular, placing her in 5th position after the initial string. The German champion and Chinese shooter had established early leads with near-perfect shooting, while Elena's conservative approach kept her in contention without taking unnecessary risks. Vladimir observed from the coach's area, recognizing Elena's strategy of building confidence with steady shooting before attempting more aggressive tactics. This patient approach had served her well throughout her career, allowing her to peak when others were struggling with accumulated pressure. However, the quality of competition meant that conservative shooting might not be sufficient to reach the medal positions. As the competition progressed through its elimination phases, Elena's performance gradually improved. Her shots became more precise and confident, while several higher-seeded competitors began to struggle with the mounting pressure. By the halfway point, Elena had moved into medal contention, sitting in third place behind the German and Chinese shooters who continued their exceptional performance. The venue's atmosphere intensified as the field narrowed to the final 4 competitors. Elena's family watched from the spectator area, their nervous energy palpable even from a distance. Television cameras captured every shot, and the electronic scoreboard updated in real time, adding to the pressure that Elena had trained years to manage effectively. Elena's breakthrough moment came during a critical elimination round when she needed a perfect shot to avoid finishing in 4th place. Drawing upon memories of hunting challenges that had required single, precise shots under pressure, Elena achieved the deep focus that had always been her strength. Her shot scored a perfect 10, while her closest competitor wavered under pressure and scored slightly lower. Advancing to the final 3 competitors brought Elena face-to-face with the sport's ultimate pressure test. Each remaining shot would be decisive, with the possibility of victory or defeat hanging on minute differences in execution. The German champion remained in first place, but Elena had closed the gap significantly and was now within striking distance of both silver and gold medals. The penultimate shot series required Elena to maintain perfect technique while knowing that any mistake could eliminate her medal chances. She drew upon Dr. Chen's mental training techniques, using visualization and breathing control to maintain her rhythm despite the enormous stakes. Her shot was excellent, maintaining her position and setting up a dramatic final series. With 3 shots remaining, Elena found herself in an unexpected position. The Chinese shooter had faltered under pressure, dropping to 3rd place while Elena had moved into silver medal position behind the German champion. More remarkably, the gap between 1st and 2nd place was small enough that Elena could potentially win gold with perfect final shots. The realization that she was competing for the World Championship created a moment of overwhelming emotion that threatened to break Elena's concentration. Years of training had led to this moment, but nothing had fully prepared her for the reality of being one perfect shot away from becoming world champion. She closed her eyes and reminded herself of the fundamental lessons learned from her earliest shooting experiences. Elena's coach called a brief timeout, allowing her to reset mentally before the final shots. Vladimir reminded her that she had already exceeded all expectations and should shoot without fear or hesitation. The advice resonated with Elena's natural approach, helping her recapture the calm confidence that had carried her through previous challenges. The final shot series began with the German shooter maintaining her lead with consistent, precise shooting. Elena responded with equally excellent shots, neither gaining nor losing ground in the medal standings. With 1 shot remaining, Elena trailed by less than a single point, meaning that a perfect final shot combined with any slight error by the German could result in an incredible upset victory. Elena's preparation for her final shot was methodical and deliberate. She had dreamed of this moment countless times but never fully believed it could become reality. The small-town girl who had learned to shoot out of necessity was now competing for the World Championship, representing her country against the sport's established elite. The venue fell silent as Elena settled into her shooting position for the final time. Through her original scope, the same one she had been adjusting on that fateful Texas morning, Elena could see the target that would determine whether she became world champion or silver medalist. Either result would represent an incredible achievement, but the possibility of gold made this the most important shot of her life. Elena's breathing slowed to its competition rhythm. Her heartbeat steadied and the world narrowed to just herself, her rifle and the target. Years of preparation, sacrifice, and determination had led to this single moment when everything she had worked for would be decided by one perfect shot. Elena's final shot was perfect, a 10.9 that represented the culmination of years of training and natural talent. The electronic scoring system confirmed what the crowd already knew. The young American had shot her way into the lead with one shot remaining for the German champion. The venue erupted in amazement as spectators realized they were witnessing one of competitive shooting's greatest upsets. The German shooter, feeling the pressure of potentially losing a championship she had dominated for 3 years, took extra time preparing for her final shot. Elena watched from her lane, experiencing a surreal mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Regardless of the German's final shot, Elena had secured at least a silver medal and guaranteed her place in shooting sports history. When the German's final shot, registered as a 10.7, excellent by any standard but insufficient, to regain the lead, Elena Martinez became the world champion. The girl who had learned to shoot protecting her family's farm had defeated the world's best shooters using the same scope she had been adjusting during that quiet morning practice session 3 years earlier. The medal ceremony was emotional beyond anything Elena had imagined. Standing atop the podium as her country's national anthem played, she thought about the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. Her parents wept in the stands, still struggling to comprehend their daughter's transformation from small-town shooter to world champion. Elena's victory created international headlines and established her as the favorite for the upcoming Olympics. Media interviews revealed her remarkable background, inspiring countless young athletes who had previously believed elite competition was reserved for those with extensive resources and early advantages. Elena became a symbol of determination overcoming circumstance. The Olympic Games arrived 6 months later, held in Paris with unprecedented global attention focused on shooting sports. Elena's World Championship had elevated the profile of competitive shooting, and she found herself featured in television commercials and magazine profiles that portrayed her as America's newest sporting hero. The Olympic competition was even more intense than the World Championships, with Elena carrying the burden of enormous expectations alongside her natural desire to perform well. The pressure was magnified by constant media attention and the knowledge that billions of people worldwide would be watching her compete for Olympic gold. Elena's Olympic campaign began strongly, with solid preliminary rounds that secured her advancement to the final. However, the competition was extraordinarily tight, with several shooters capable of winning gold on any given day. Elena's experience as world champion helped her manage the pressure, but she knew that Olympic competition often produced unexpected results. The Olympic final was a masterpiece of precision shooting, with all 8 competitors performing at exceptional levels. Elena found herself in medal contention throughout the competition, trading positions with other shooters as each shot determined the constantly changing standings. The quality of shooting was the highest ever recorded in Olympic competition. Elena's moment of triumph came during the final elimination round, when years of mental training and competitive experience combined to produce her best shooting. Under maximum pressure, she advanced to compete for the gold medal against Switzerland's veteran champion, setting up a dramatic conclusion to her Olympic debut. The final shots were an exhibition of shooting perfection that amazed even experienced coaches and officials. Elena's technique was flawless, her mental state completely focused, and her equipment performed perfectly. When the electronic scoring confirmed her victory, Elena had achieved something that seemed impossible just 4 years earlier. Standing on the Olympic podium with gold around her neck, Elena reflected on the remarkable chain of events that had started with a simple scope adjustment. That morning practice session had led to a chance encounter with talent scouts, which had opened doors to elite training and international competition. Each step had seemed unlikely at the time, but together they had created an extraordinary journey. Elena's Olympic victory inspired a generation of young shooters and changed perceptions about the sport's accessibility. Her success demonstrated that talent and determination could overcome traditional barriers, encouraging athletes from diverse backgrounds to pursue their dreams regardless of obstacles. Years later, Elena would establish a foundation, providing equipment and training opportunities for young shooters from modest backgrounds. She never forgot the importance of that original scope, or the morning when she had been simply trying to improve her equipment. Her story became legendary in shooting sports, proving that extraordinary journeys can begin with the most ordinary moments. The scope that had started everything remained in Elena's personal collection, a reminder that greatness often emerges from simple dedication to improvement. Elena's legacy extended far beyond her competitive achievements, inspiring countless individuals to pursue excellence regardless of their starting circumstances. Her shot had indeed echoed into history, but not because of its technical perfection or competitive significance. Instead, Elena's story resonated because it demonstrated the transformative power of opportunity, combined with unwavering determination. The young woman who had been adjusting her scope during a quiet morning practice had become a symbol of American achievement and proof that dreams, no matter how ambitious, could become reality through persistence and courage.